Greetings, everyone. I'm Sandra Weingarten, a member of the Eugene Symphony Guild Board, and I'm so excited to be able to introduce you to this Eugene Symphony program. The Symphony Guild sponsors these concert previews as one of our many ways to support the Eugene Symphony. We do a lot of fundraising in order to support the symphony and its educational programs. And this year, because of COVID, we're having to look for new and creative ways to raise even more money. This spring, instead of our traditional garden tour, which has always been very popular in the community, we're planning a virtual music in the garden, and we're so excited about the possibilities that invites. The Guild always welcomes new members, and you can learn more about us on our website, eugenesymphonyguild.org. And now, I'm delighted to present Maestro Francesco Chung to introduce this Soundwaves program.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Eugene Symphony Guild Concert Preview. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to the Eugene Symphony Guild for hosting this. So delighted to have some time to spend together talking about this amazing program that we've put together, our first true virtual concert this season, and it's going to be premiering on March 4th. That's a Thursday evening, so I really hope you guys can join us, and you can find all the details at eugenesymphony.org. And today we're just going to hang out and talk about how we ended up in this spot, kind of what went into this production, and then we're going to dig into all this incredible music we have on this program for you with the 24 string players who joined me on the stage at the Holt Center. So how did we get here? It's been a long journey. In fact, it's been a year since I was last at the Holt Center doing a wonderful special concert with the Broadway star, Leslie Odom Jr., but it's been a year. It's been a year since then, and I know because it was Leap Day when we had that performance. So it's been quite a while, but man, it felt good to be back in the Holt Center again, and just making music with my colleagues, and just everything feels better when you're making music. I can certainly tell you that when you have that chance to come together, it just means the world. So. But it's been an incredible journey, as you can imagine, for the past year. It's been incredibly challenging. And, this was a series that we had intended to start in early November. And we just, the timing of the freeze that came down in Oregon just didn't even allow us to pivot or try something different. We just didn't have that chance to come together at that point. We did get to release an amazing performance of Scriabin that we had done a couple of years prior, but we ourselves couldn't get on stage to make any more music. And that continued into December, and because of that uncertainty, we've sort of been dipping our toe back in the water. We had a wonderful presentation by our Symphony Connect string quartet, and that happened last month. But now we actually have gotten back on stage, got back in the Holt Center, and put together this great program for you. So I'm really excited you'll have a chance to see us doing what we do best, which is just making music together and having that opportunity to share it with all of you. So the concept behind this program, only being able to have string players for now, I thought, well, if I'm only going to have string players, let's show them off. Let's pick music that absolutely, in many ways, maybe transcends what you think just string players are capable of. And so it kind of came in two ways. I thought a little bit about the type of music that I wanted to have and how it would show off the string sections, and then dug a little more into the composers that we chose. I wanted to have composers that really represent what the Eugene Symphony's been doing. This is the first time that we have put together a program that is specifically designed to be seen by people not only throughout Eugene, but all around the world. And so this is also a chance for us to make a statement about our values and the joy that we find in music. So the concept of the program, getting into the string music, when you're trying to find music for strings that is some of the best you can find, you're going to look for composers who were formidable string players themselves, right? So we're going to, we start off the program with a work by Mozart. Mozart, he was a prodigy when he was like 5 years old on the violin. So, a very easy choice. Everything he wrote for the strings always utilizes those instruments just incredibly well. But then we're also going to, move on in the 20th century to the Polish composer and violinist Grazyna Bacewicz. She was the concertmaster of the Polish radio orchestra for a long time. So obviously incredible violinist, and she really puts the string players to work in everything she writes. I've been a huge fan of her music for many years. She has many incredible violin concertos, but even when she sets to write something down for the strings, it really is remarkable. And surely enough, this piece is titled Concerto for Strings. Literally, she's already giving a hint that this is a concerto. I mean, she's going to put the string players through their paces. And then also, the contemporary work of Jessie Montgomery. And Jessie's an incredible violinist in the Catalyst String Quartet. I've been such a big fan of her music as well. I've conducted many of her works. And her string pieces are just unlike anything I've ever heard. I think you'll agree after listening to it. Her understanding of how the strings can kind of link together, the different instruments, but also just like the pure virtuosity, like the way she creates sound and rhythm on string instruments through a combination of special techniques and pizzicato and just the way the string instruments are played. It really does. It's basically things that I didn't even think the string section as a group, the sounds they were possible of creating, she finds those ways. So those three composers in particular, each one of them really had a deep understanding of the violin and therefore kind of how the string instruments could work as a group. And I think it really comes off in those pieces. I also, focused on certain composers outside of kind of the two classics that I wanted us to have, which is the Mozart Divertimento and Holst's St. Paul Suite. Those are kind of two real standards in the kind of the string repertoire. You might even start playing those when you're in youth orchestra because they teach really good fundamentals while obviously they're incredible works of music. But they definitely give string players a chance to kind of dig in on the fundamentals, which was really important in this program. Again, it's been a year since we've been on the stage, and with all of the really important safety protocols we have in place, like 6 feet between all the players, and so everyone's really spread out. And and the masks and kind of the rehearsal process is a little bit different. So with everything feeling so different, I wanted to make sure that we would have a couple pieces on the program that everyone knows really well. So we don't have to worry about the music part for a couple of these pieces and just explore what this whole process feels like. So outside of those two works, the other three composers are ones that we have done in Eugene in the past couple of years. And they're all, particular favorites of mine. In fact, my first season in Eugene, our composer in residence was Augusta Reed Thomas. So, this wasn't something I had programmed. It was something I got to inherit. And Augusta and I, of course, became very good friends over the course of that year. She's just a remarkable composer, but also a communicator for the importance of music and art in our lives. There's a little introduction of hers that will be a part of the performance. So you'll have a chance to hear her talking about her music and kind of get that sense of kind of her contagious joy that she brings to everything she does. So it's great to kind of throw back to my very first season in Eugene, and we gave the West Coast premiere of this amazing percussion concerto she wrote for Third Coast Percussion. So it was 4 percussionists and the orchestra. It was it was definitely one of the pieces I worked on hardest in my first season in Eugene. And then Grazyna Bacewicz, the Polish composer that I mentioned earlier, she's a composer that I brought to Eugene. Again, I've been familiar with her music since high school, but only recently I've had a chance to really explore her music for orchestra. And the Eugene Symphony did her overture for orchestra a couple of years ago, which is just an absolute barnstormer of a piece. A great fun, really shows off the orchestra. And I think her music always kind of surprises people with its directness and the way it just communicates enthusiasm and energy. Her music just has the most remarkable impact. And believe it or not, as much as I've done some of her other pieces, the Concerto for Strings was actually on my bucket list for a long time. So it's great to get that off my bucket list, and honestly, getting to work on it in person and get a better sense for the piece, I now can appreciate this work even more. The Concerto for Strings is sometimes called, her Ninth Symphony, because it is such a perfect work. I mean, every note in it is pristine. The texture she creates, and just the pure impact of the virtuosity she asks for is really unlike anything else. And I think this is one of her most popular works, and I think rightly so. So it's great to dig in on that and be able to present a composer that I've more works of a composer that I've enjoyed for so long. And then Jessie Montgomery, who I've been conducting so much of for the past couple of years. I think I discovered her music a couple of years ago, and her career is just a rocket ship right now. I mean, all the big orchestras are commissioning and performing her music, and it's great to see, because I truly think she's one of those composers that we're going to look back, 30 years from now, we're going to look back and say her music really, kind of not changed the music world, but obviously, influenced where we were going. I think it will leave an incredible impact, not just on musicians, but on the audiences that are getting a chance to hear her music. Because every time I've done it, whether it's been, in Eugene or in Santa Rosa, or I even did an excerpt for my family concert with the New York Philharmonic, no matter where I do it, the people just love it. I get so many people coming up afterwards and wanting to talk about her music. So I'm going to, continue to perform everything I can find by her, and it's just great to see her music just, becoming a part of the tapestry of what orchestras are playing right now. So really excited to be able to dig in on that as well in this concert. So there's a lot going on, as you can see. And so, let's just take a second and maybe we'll go through each one of these pieces in order and just get a sense for kind of how it all goes together. So we're going to start with the Mozart Divertimento. And, this is Mozart we're talking about. So he wrote this piece when he was 16. So, I mean, not much of a surprise there, given, he'd already written a couple of operas by then. But, Mozart, just everything he does becomes bigger than what it seems to be in the moment. So, Divertimento is supposed to be, just light music, fun music, something if you were having a party, maybe there'd be like a string quartet playing a Mozart Divertimento. That would be the idea around this. And it is fun. It is light. It is in many ways party music. But also, there is so much detail in this piece. It's like you may want it to be background music, but I can tell you if this piece was played at a party, everyone would stop talking and, listen to the music. So when Mozart sits down to write light music, it is anything but. There's so much detail going on in this music. And for its time, you'll see that the virtuosity in the string instruments, the way that it's not just like the first violin section, but the way the two violin sections work back and forth. One of the silver linings of what we're having to do in recording these performances is you're really going to get up close with our string players. We have these incredible high def cameras and it's all being directed. So you're getting really great, occasional close up shots of different instruments and what those players are doing. And I think it's easy, especially with Mozart, if you're in the audience and you're kind of, 50 feet back, you might not be aware of all kind of the inner intricacies that Mozart does. He was a great violinist, but he loved the viola. He loved that inner voice that sometimes gets caught between the melody line and the bass line. All those inner voices, he loved them, and he always gives them these special little tidbits. And this Divertimento is full of these fun things where, the first violins will, do this incredible run, but then the second violins will jump in and repeat the same thing, as if to say, wait, we want to be a part of that as well. So the way, things get passed around the orchestra is just lovely. And I think one of my favorite moments is in the last movement of this Divertimento. It's like 2.5 minutes long. It just sweeps right by. But even in the midst of what, just happy-go-lucky piece, right smack in the middle of it, Mozart lands like about a 30-second fugue, like right in our faces, where first the second violins play, and then the first violins jump in, the violas jump in, the cellos jump in. They all jump in with the same melody, but it's set off from each other. And so basically there's just chaos for like 30 seconds before we get like these three rather dissonant and kind of shocking chords, and then it just dissolves back into like happy, fun, light music. This is the joy I really get in performing Mozart's music, or those classical composers, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven. Is, yes, there's that the balance, the beauty, the gracefulness of the classical era that we expect. But the real joy is when they break out of that mold, and it just kind of smacks you in the face for a second, when they just kind of go out on a limb and try something. That's what makes this music so exciting. And in many ways, I think that's why we know the Mozart, the music of Mozart is so important now, but maybe like his more popular counterpart, Salieri, we don't play anymore. And Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven had plenty of challengers in composition during their lifetimes. But I think what really sets them apart is not that their music was necessarily more perfect. It was imperfect in just the right ways that it really cues us into it. So I can give a whole nother talk on all of that. But at any rate, there really is some delightful moments in a piece that otherwise is supposed to be light, fun, party music, which it most certainly is. And then we're going to continue on to the music of Grazyna Bacewicz. I wanted to put these pieces together because actually this work by Bacewicz is often called an example of neoclassicism. Because there is a lightness to it, there is a balance and a gracefulness in some ways that people might call this neoclassical. I don't really think it works for this piece. Unlike, say, Stravinsky's neoclassical period, where he really does keep that lightness and that gracefulness. Whenever I listen to this piece and in working on it, the opening of this piece is so shocking. To me, it's like the precursor to like heavy metal for string orchestra. I mean, seriously, like when you listen to the opening of this piece and the strings are just like, they're just shredding, right? Like the string players are all just shredding for like the first minute of this piece. And it's so much fun, but you can just see everyone just kind of like doing this for like the first minute of the piece. And there's nothing neoclassical about that. So, yes, there are some elements, most certainly. And I think that's what's kind of fun about putting it next to the Mozart, is there are little things here and there you'll hear where you'll be like, oh, that's interesting. It seems like a little bit of a throwback. But ultimately, this is her own style, and it is just incredible what she explores in this piece. You have these two outer movements that are just high wire acts of virtuosity, just things flying around the orchestra, solos for individual string players, and then back to the big group, things being just passed around. And then what has become more and more my favorite movement, honestly, is the second movement, which is the total reverse. It's so fluid. And the opening, she layers all these incredible textures. The only thing I could think of was almost Mahler-esque in the amount of texture that she gets from the orchestra. So you can have like one line of music, but one group of instruments will be playing it pizzicato, so you get little plucked versions of that melody. Then you'll have another instrument doing tremolo on those notes, and so they're playing very, very soft, very, very quickly, so you get this kind of shimmer on that note. And then you'll have another instrument doing legato, so they'll just be playing it beautifully and slurred on their instrument. And you pile all three textures on top of each other. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound, very ethereal, and you keep on hearing things kind of pop out of the texture when that happens. So I've really come to appreciate the amount of detail in the second movement, and she really does divide up the strings. This is another way that a composer who's very familiar with the string instruments can make the string section bigger than what it actually is. So you think in our traditional string section, you've got first violins, second violins, violas, cellos, and basses, right? But say you were to take any one of those sections and start dividing them, then you could have 10 sections, right? If you divide each one into 2 sections, you'll have 10 sections. Well, there are times in this piece where she divides the sections into 4 sections. So there are times where I think there's like 12 different lines going on at the same time in the orchestra. So it's quite incredible. And in the second movement, the way she kind of opens the sound up of the string section, brings out individual players, and just makes it sound bigger and more full and have more nuance going on than you would expect from, say, 5 groups of instruments on the stage. So, the other thing just to talk about Bacewicz, because I think she's a composer that, if you were to listen to her music, you have no idea kind of her own life story. Mid 20th century Polish composer, spent many years in Warsaw under the Nazi occupation. And all Polish music was banned during those years. And, she was a quite prominent violinist and composer at the time, so she obviously had to lay low. But what she was doing was actually helping to organize these secret underground concerts of Polish music to support her composer colleagues and support performers. So she was managing to do all of this under the most horrific circumstances. Things were incredibly difficult for her family, and obviously she wasn't able to perform or do the things she wanted to do under normal circumstances, which obviously much worse for her. But the idea of not being able to make music the way you want to, I think every musician can relate to that now. It's I never thought in my lifetime I'd say that I know what it feels like to have kind of music kind of taken from you, or the ability to share music taken from you. But now I know what that feels like. And I can only imagine that on top of the upheaval and all the horrible things happening in Warsaw at the time. That's what she was going through. And yet her personality, the vibrancy of her music, everything she wrote during that time is just powerhouse. I mean, she refused to be put down by this. Kind of there's this defiant joy in everything she does, and even after the occupation ended, this Concerto for Strings is from 1948. So it's it's afterwards, and she's back to being this incredible celebrated composer in Poland. But it is you still sense, I mean, the energy and this kind of almost just this manic energy, and like, I will continue to create under any circumstances, and that's what I feel in her music, and that's what I love about it, is you just get to throw yourself at it, and it is just full of joy and life and creativity. So I can't really think of a more perfect composer to kind of get back on stage with and to be able to share with all of you. We'll then continue on with the music of Augusta Reed Thomas, or Gusty, as she likes to be called. This piece, I think, is kind of quintessential for Gusty's music, of Paradise and Light. This is a piece from 2008 that was originally written for a girls' chorus. And it's a setting, it was actually a setting of an E.E. Cummings poem, Kiss Me. And obviously, I mean, I can see why, it's so beautiful what she did with it. It makes sense that she not only orchestrated it for string orchestra like we're going to do, she also orchestrated it for a cello ensemble to play. So Gusty's music, if you didn't have a chance to hear it when we did it in Eugene, it's all about gesture. It's all about movement. And she often says, she'll be kind of walking through her house when she's composing, and feeling, moving her body to kind of come up with how she wants her music to flow. It's also very visual, and I wanted to show you the way when she starts kind of laying out how a piece is going to go, it's like a painting, basically. I mean, check this out. So this is an example of what she calls a map, musical map. And you can see, there's a lot going on here. But as you can see, sort of at the top of the page, there's like a timeline. right? And those numbers are the minutes. You can see 1 through 18. This is not for the piece we're doing. This is for a different piece. But you can see, all the color and the notes and where things are going to happen. The concepts are going to happen. You can see that she wrote like the word bells a lot at certain points in the piece, and she'll even write things, like crescendo, like the music is going to do this here. And she talks, she writes a lot about how she wants the music to sound. And she creates these maps for each one of her pieces. And I think it really comes through in her music, because at one point, her music, on one level, her music is like a series of gestures. So you get kind of, combinations of kind of like short, long sounds, and then there'll be something that like comes in a little bit louder, and then there'll be like a softer reply. And it's like 2 or 3, maybe 5 notes at a time in each one of these gestures. And there's sometimes just silence in between them. And then there'll be another little bit and then silence. It feels very much like if someone was talking to you and pausing to think. And you would imagine, that can feel a little bit disjointed, to kind of always have these kind of stopping parts. But I think one of the things that gives her music some flow is that in her mind, she's writing it in this kind of long form. It's just created out of little bits and pieces of these beautiful gestures. So, it is really, it's hard. I will say that working on your music can be quite difficult, because you also have to have this long form idea in your head, but in the moment, things have to happen very quickly and sometimes nuanced and sometimes sharp, but you have to really be on point. And this piece, for as beautiful as it sounds, and the lush sounds of the strings and everything, I will say that when you're performing this piece and when you're conducting it, you have to just you focus so hard for the entire 6 minutes of this piece. You have to be right on point to be able to present it correctly. So, but really excited to be able to return to Gusty's music, and I think you'll all really enjoy getting a chance to hear of Paradise and Light. And then we're going to move on to the music of Jessie Montgomery. As I said, she's a violinist in the Catalyst String Quartet. And again, just she can do things with the string instruments that I didn't think was possible. And the way she combines these sounds is just so invigorating. And so actually I have a little video to show you. This is the piece that we're going to play, Strum, but in its string quartet version, being played by her string quartet, and she's playing second violin in this. So check out a little bit of this performance. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend to check out the Catalyst String Quartet playing any of Jessie Montgomery's works. It really is something else. But this is like the last minute of Strum, and you'll see what I mean, just how incredible her writing is. So, I mean, such great fun. What an incredible piece, and you can see. I mean, when she calls this piece Strum, there is strumming. I mean, it is just, and as amazing as the string quartet version is, when you got like a whole section of string players just strumming away on their instruments, it's such a great sound. And what I love, and hopefully you get a sense from even listening to that, is there's something familiar about everything she writes, because she's so deeply connected to kind of the folk idioms of the U.S. Whether it's jazz or blues or spirituals. So many of her pieces find the roots in the way that kind of music communicates. And so without having to, overtly say, oh, I'm being inspired by, jazz or whatever, or like this piece, a lot of kind of like folk music styles. She doesn't have to say anything because it's deeply steeped in that. But at the same time, it's fresh, it's original. I mean, it's obviously her voice. There's no other composer writing things like this right now. And it just comes across so well, and it's so much fun. So I hope you're really looking forward to hearing this piece Strum, because it really is just a blast to perform, and I think people really enjoy getting a chance to just be along for the ride. It's just so great. And then, we're going to finish up with a piece by Gustav Holst, St. Paul's Suite, a piece that many people might be familiar with. Like I said, a lot of us learn this actually when we're in youth orchestra for the first time, because it challenges string players in really kind of fundamental ways. How to make a beautiful singing tone, how to have more a marcato sound, how to listen to each other, how to play difficult rhythms together. So there's a lot in this piece that makes it really great fun to play, and it was nice to be able to just relax and have some fun with this piece that's just full of kind of inside musical jokes, but also just, like some great jigs, and it's just great fun to play, and a great way to kind of finish off our program. So thank you so much for spending some time with me to talk a little bit about this music. And once again, be sure to go to eugenesymphony.org to check out all the details on how to see this performance. That will be premiering on March 4th, Thursday evening. And then it will be up for a while, not a long while, so that's why just check all the details, and please do join us, share with your friends and family, any other music lovers out there, and so we can, this is it feels so good to be out. It feels so good to be sharing music like this again, and we want to reach as many people as we can with just the joy that comes when we get to share music together. So looking forward to seeing you from the Holt Center stage, and then for all the other performances that we have planned for the rest of the season. So thanks so much, everyone, and talk to you again soon.